Welcome to the Unscripted podcast. My name's Corby LaCroix, and the song you're hearing right now is called Great and Mighty One, available on Spotify, iTunes, or wherever you get your music. But for now, here's your host and my friend, Aaron Conrad.
Great Redeemer, God of grace.
All right, everybody, welcome back to Unscripted from my studios in Old Hilliard. And a very special day today, and we're going to unpack this a little bit as we go. But I have a very special guest with me today. He is a pastor, author, speaker, athlete, coach, husband, father, and now my friend. So, Aaron, why don't you introduce yourself, and we'll go from there.
Well, first, we shared first names, so that's a great thing. But, man, that's a pretty good introduction. That's who I am, carry a lot of hats like everyone does, wear a lot of hats, carry a lot of roles, and just privileged, man, to spend a few minutes chatting with you.
It's very cool because and this happens often, which is an honor to me that people will reach out and say, hey, you have to interview this friend of mine, which is what the whole platform's about. So it was, very cool when our friend Pat reached out to me. But we're coming on today to talk about your newest book, and you actually have 3 books. I want to make sure I get them right. Don't Miss Your Life, which is coming out soon. You have another book called Outrageous and another one called To Who. Is that correct?
You got it. That first title, that To Who, is my first book, and it's very grammatically grating to some people because I acknowledge that it's grammatically incorrect, and that's the point.
Yeah, I love it. So let's start with that one. We'll work our way up. Let's start with To Who. What made you write that book?
Yeah, I was a professional soccer player once upon a time. Got to fulfill my childhood dream. They say that less than 1% of 1% of kids growing up in America become professional athletes. So I feel blessed that I got to live that life, played professional soccer in the top leagues around the world for 13 seasons, and then transitioned into coaching. And that first book really grew out of my experience in soccer. There was this team we used to play in who had this fan who, I think everybody that's ever been to a sporting event knows that guy that sits in the center of the stadium, and he's the one or she's the one that's always yelling and always kind of like making fun of the other team. But this particular fan had this one chant. Anytime our team had the ball and we'd make a bad pass or we'd shoot and we'd miss the goal, he was a big man and he wore a sombrero. And he'd always put his big, fat, meaty hands around his mouth. And anytime we made a bad pass, he would yell, "To who?" And it was really annoying because, for starters, it's not grammatically correct. Not that I majored in English, but I at least know that much. And so it's kind of like nails on the chalkboard because he's making fun of you too. It's like, well, to who are you passing? Because it wasn't a very good pass. Where are you shooting the ball? Because you missed the goal. And so anyway, long story short, I'll make a long book short. One day we were flying back from the game and a teammate of mine said, that fan? Like, yeah. He's like, yeah, I've been thinking about his question. I'm like, yeah, to who? And he's like, yeah. And so we started talking about this idea that maybe that fan is kind of like God, and God gives us talent and ability, but he doesn't make us use it. We get to choose how we spend our lives. We get to choose how we use the talents and gifts and time that God has given us. So maybe that fan is like God, and God sits on the sideline of our life and he would yell out to us, to whom are you living?
That's right. I love it. And that's available. All these are going to be available probably in the same place. Where could we find that book?
Everywhere books are sold. You could go to my website, Tredway.com, but Amazon and Barnes & Noble, etc.
And Tredway is Tredway, just so everybody has the
because a lot of people get it wrong for some reason. Yeah. They stick an A in there, but you got it, Tredway.
There you go. All right. So moving forward to Outrageous. What was Outrageous about?
Yeah, it's the simple idea was that I really believe that, when we have small amounts of faith, you can see extraordinary things happen. And some of the weirdest things have happened to me. things that maybe some people don't want to happen. But that was really a book of stories, 25 kind of different experiences I've had where, it wasn't that I was exercising this profound faith, but I put myself out there, and I think a lot of life is just saying yes. But it feels like, especially the older I get, it's easier and easier to say no to stuff.
Right.
Do you want to do this? Do you want to go there? Well, that's too dangerous. And this is, I'm not sure about, I don't have time for this. And I kind of just got into this posture where I try to say yes to stuff. So that's kind of what this book is about. Like, what happens when you start to say yes in your life and you exercise a little bit of faith in relationship to that yes.
So it's kind of like Yes Man, the Jim Carrey movie.
Not quite.
Sort of.
Have you seen that movie Yes Day? My kid loves that. It's a movie on Netflix that came out. Jennifer Garner and a few other famous people recently, actually during COVID. And the whole premise of the movie is that there's a 24-hour period where mom and dad can't say no to any question or any request that the kids make. So the kids design this whole day, and my kid loves that idea.
I bet. Have you put it into practice with your kid yet? I actually, I think that's somewhat of the premise of Unscripted is I really want to encourage people to live life unscripted. We try to, I think we have the script for ourselves, but it's when we kind of go outside the lines a little bit and say yes to opportunities that we really live our fullest life.
Yeah.
I mean, we can live a day to day and do the same things, rinse and repeat. But I think, so that's what I encourage people to. So I love that concept. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And that brings us, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was going to just say, I don't know where your audience is at with, things of faith. And, I respect that. But I love this thing that Jesus says, that he came to bring life and life in abundance. And that's kind of what I'm about. Like, I don't want to just kind of make it by. I want to experience the fullness of what might be available to me. And that doesn't always mean like flying on private jets and, champagne and caviar. It's sometimes the simplest things, but it's just kind of being fully alive in those, daily kind of like even washing the dishes or hanging out with the kids, just being, owning and feeling alive in those things.
I want that car to just like pull into the final parking spot with like smoke coming out of the engine, the mirrors are hanging off, it's scratched up. I want that thing. I want every light on the dash on. Man. That's right. I want to drive that car. That's the only way to go. It really is. So, all right. So that brings us to Don't Miss Your Life. And I want to set this up. Again, our friend Pat introduced you and I today. This is the first time we've ever met. Pat called, and like I said, other people have, and just said, hey, I have this amazing friend you have to interview. You're going to love him. He'll be great for your audience. Okay, awesome. Love it. The more he told me about you, the more I was like, absolutely, let's do that. And then I guess it was, 2-3 weeks after, because this has been scheduled for a while. It was 2 or 3 weeks after he scheduled that, Pat received some tough news. And tough news that's gotten a little bit better. That could have been even worse news, as you and I were talking about. So Pat received a cancer diagnosis, and that's after this all was set up. And so it's very weird. I have chills as I'm saying it, because the title of your book again is Don't Miss Your Life. And I know you've been close to Pat, since he's received his diagnosis. Can you talk a little bit about, first of all, the book, but I think it does dovetail a little bit into Pat's story and where he's at right now.
Yeah, thanks for that. I've been praying for Pat and his family. Nobody wants to get that call,
right?
And nobody expects that they are going to get that call. And Pat did get that. But what I love, for him is that he has a faith and a hope that there is someone that's in control, and it's that faith that I know he's clinging to right now. But Pat's a good friend of mine. We've known each other for several years, and I happen to be his pastor, but that doesn't mean much of anything. We're just buddies, like anybody. But we spent a lot of time talking about just like, how do we live life well? How do we make the most of our lives? And pretty early on, when I started to think about this idea of not missing your life, don't miss your life. You know, I'm a guy, I kind of shared that, you know, for me, my journey was in professional sports. And some people might say, man, I would have loved to do that. Others might say, I'm glad I never did that. But, you know, for me, that was my dream. When I was 5 years old, my dad, he came home from work one day. He was a physical therapist, and he had these pads. He put them on my shins. He had these socks that went up to like my thigh, and I've got all the gear on. And he says, we're going to play a game I've never heard of. It was soccer. We go out to this field, and you know, I see all these kids kind of running, screaming, kicking each other. And I look up at my dad, who, you know, is a giant then, but I'm like, this is what I'm going to do with my life. I'm going to be a soccer player, age 5. Like, I kind of feel like I locked into my purpose in some respects. But for the next 20 some odd years, I kind of thought that purpose was just about me, you know, and the success I could have in and through soccer, and the money I could make, and the fans, and whatever comes along with that pursuit. And when I got to kind of experience some of those things, I started to think, is there anything more? You know, and I think that probably for most of us, we do have a moment like that where we get something we really want, and then we start to wonder or think, could it be that there's something else?
Yeah. Unbelievable. And it's interesting how, and I could be wrong, but based on what we've talked about, your first book was To Who. So you're kind of finding out who am I living for? Like what, and maybe I'm wrong. Correct me if I am, but it seems like maybe that's part of it, is like, to who am I living for? What is my life? What am I living it for? Then you move to Outrageous, and you're encouraging people to live outside of, you know, the normal, it sounds like. And now you're defining even more, hey, don't miss your life. And you're tying them all together. It almost feels like they all go together in that. And of course, everything is wrapped in your faith. And, you know, if people are people of faith, don't miss your life. Like, don't, I think we do, as you said, no one wants to get that phone call. No one wants to have that accident. No one wants, you know, our lives, we just learned over the last 2 years that we don't have control of anything. I mean, really, we really don't. It is so fleeting to think that we control things. And, you know, that's why we shouldn't miss our life, because tomorrow we could have another lockdown or something. Who knows? Like, you know what I mean? And all of a sudden, all of our plates were cleared. You know, we had all these plans and all these things. I don't know. I think that's just, is that somewhat correct in how those 3 books kind of go together and how that journey is?
Yeah, I think you got it. You know, I heard this great quote one time. Someone said, our greatest fear should not be of failure, but of overwhelming success at things that don't really matter.
Absolutely.
And that just always resonated with me. You know, I experienced some success pretty early in my life. And don't get me wrong, I think that we should pursue excellence, and we should pursue success to a degree. But the premise of this book is all about, what if we changed our greatest pursuit from success to significance? And how would that subtle shift in pursuit change the way we go about life and the way we live and the things that we experience as a result?
Hey everyone, my name is Cami Pranel, and I'm the Executive Director for My Unscripted. We hope you are enjoying today's interview. My Unscripted is dedicated to helping others find their voice, passion, and follow their dreams. Our team can help create websites, apps, YouTube channels, podcasts, media, and social content. Whatever your passion and vision, we can help. Our good friend Manny Ahome of Samaritan's Feet once said, make sure your dreams and goals are big enough to create room for others to join you. We've created room for you to join us too. Find out more at myunscripted.com. Now let's join Aaron for the second half of today's interview.
I watched the sermon. I do stalk my upcoming guest, just so people that don't know, I do stalk a little bit. So I watched the sermon that was on your site, and the sermon was titled "Don't Miss Your Life." And early on in the sermon, you mentioned the thief, and I thought that was a really powerful way to set up what you were speaking on. Can you speak a little bit about the thief? Because I think that's so important for people to realize.
It's interesting that you bring that up, and thanks for stalking me a little bit. That's good. But,
it's creepy, isn't it?
I once had a stalker in college, but we won't go there.
That's right.
I guarantee it wasn't you.
I'm gonna get a phone call after this.
I'm gonna call the campus security here, but
that's right.
No, I opened the show kind of talking. I don't know if I reference it, but John 10:10. That verse where Jesus says, I came to bring life in abundance. Well, what I didn't share is on the front side of that verse, Jesus says, the thief comes only to rob, steal, kill, and destroy. And then he transitions, but I, Jesus, have come to bring life and life in abundance. And so, that's something I've thought a lot about, that, we don't like to think about it, but there is an enemy. There are things out there that want to keep us from living, so to speak, our best life, life to the full, life in abundance. I love one translation of that verse. It says, a life overflowing. Yeah. That's what I want in my life. Like, I just want to, every day in my journal, I try to have a habit of journaling for 5 or 10 minutes a day. I write at the bottom, be joyful. I just want to overflow with joy as I go throughout my days, because we've gone through a period of time where joy was a commodity, man. And it's, you got to fight for those type of characteristics and qualities. So yeah, there is a thief, that comes to rob, steal, kill, and destroy. But the hope of that passage is that Jesus came to bring life.
Yeah, absolutely. Man, this has been wonderful for me. This just encouraging to hear and see your joy. As you said, you don't just write it in your journal. I think you truly live it in the short time we've spent together. But a few things. Let's do some particulars at the end. But when we speak about Pat, just to kind of go back to that, I know you've had conversations with him, and his journey has been probably much like anyone with really any medical diagnosis that's difficult. There was unknowns. And then there was, so I think, he was looking at a variety of different things, and thank God that the worst of those, it does not appear, are going to be where he will be in this journey. But he is still going to be in the journey. And I think you shared some conversation with him that you mentioned to me. So can you, I think he has said, there's some perspective being gained there for all of us. And Pat is an amazing man of God. He is an amazing believer. But even then, none of us are guaranteed just because of our faith that we're not going to go through the difficulties. And so can you speak to that? I know you've had some conversation with Pat.
Yeah. It's like you said, tomorrow is not guaranteed. You just don't know what's going to happen. And again, nobody wants to get that phone call. And it's interesting because, Pat's a good friend of mine. And what we haven't shared is Patrick is this ultra successful, whatever he's pursued, he's kind of crushed it. He's, got this amazing digital marketing firm, and, it's kind of like this national thing. And that's great, man. And, when I kind of walk a journey with people, like, I'm encouraging people to run hard after those type of pursuits, but just keep them in perspective, right? Like, what is it that creates a life of significance that even maybe lives beyond just the kind of wins of success of today, because, money can only buy you certain things. Right. And what I found is it really can't buy joy. It can't, it might buy happiness. That's like for a short time, but joy is this constant state. And that's really what I want to tap into. And so with Pat, we've spent a lot of time talking about how do we leverage, not just, have some success, but how do we leverage our lives so that they are significant, so that our legacy lives on even after our days here on earth are gone. We get, 70, 80, 100 years on earth, and the Bible says we get an eternity somewhere else. And I once saw this illustration. I'll just use this pen. But the author of this illustration was talking about how if you look at the tip of this pen, this is kind of like the timeline of our life. like from the start to the beginning, but like actually in a biblical sense, life goes on forever. Like the pen never ends. And yet for some reason, and this is kind of like, this tip is like life on earth. And that's all we focus on. Like we spend all our time just like, planning and preparing and, thinking about just the little tip of the pen when we got all the rest of eternity to come. And so I want to live my best days now, but also with eternity in my purview. And I think that's what Pat and I, and, you get a call like that and you start to go through some things like he's going through right now. And it does start to put that into perspective. You've got young kids, like maybe some of your listeners have, like I have. How do we make the most with the days that we have with our kids? I've got this jar that our youth pastor gave me one time, and it sits at my house, and I don't actually do this every day, but he's like, take a marble out every day because that, you only got 18 years, 365 days times 18. And that's what you got with these kids to invest in them and, shape them and, enjoy them. And sometimes you're just trying to like make it through. And that's kind of what I'm trying to remind myself on a daily basis, because I'm just like everybody else, man. I got bills to pay. I got, meetings to attend and podcasts to be on. And, and so a lot of days I wake up and I'm just like, well, I hope I make it through the day. But I try to kind of set my gaze upon something greater in the morning and live in the wake of that throughout the day.
Wow, man. Now I know why Pat wanted you to come on. No, I knew that watching and, like I said, stalking a little bit, but this has been very inspirational. And if anyone's listening, please continue to pray for our friend Pat. Just please keep him in your prayers. We'll just we'll leave it at that. Just continue to pray for Pat. He's a great man, and he does have a family. And we're just going to continue to just cover him in prayer. And I always tell him I'm just going to approach the throne with confidence. I think is what the scripture actually tells us. So, not just to feebly pray. I want to go with confidence that God's going to continue to do some amazing things in his life. So, all right, let's talk particulars. The book, it comes out October
4th is the launch date. Book writing is funny, and I've written a few, but you finish the book long before it ever comes out. So it's like this long runway, but super excited to see this thing hit the stands. And, I never grew up thinking I would write books, but it's funny to walk into places like Barnes and Noble where the book will be, or see it up on Amazon. But it's really, like for me, I'm not motivated by my own. I don't write books to make money, or, I hope that the message will resonate with people, that hopefully it's a practical guide. Like I called the book, the subtitle is The Secret to Significance. Like, I don't want to just kind of like philosophize about significance. Let me give you some tangible hooks. Let me give you some practical steps. You want to live for significance that's greater than success? I'm going to give you 3 ways to really pursue that type of life.
I love it. And you know what? There couldn't be a better time than now, because I think, the world around us is ever changing, and there's a lot of, I think for most of all of our lives, over our parents' lives, that everybody thought the end was coming soon, and we've even had dates on the calendars when people thought it was going to happen. But I do believe we're seeing signs and things that are happening. I'm not here to scare everybody, but I am saying, I think we are seeing the signs. Scripture called them the birth pains. I think that's what it says. And I do think our world is evolving very quickly, and things that at one point, I know growing up, I would always think, "It'll never happen. I'd see that one coming," But as you watch the world evolve, it's kind of happening, and you're like, "Wow, I guess it could happen." It's just, I don't know. Anyway, that's a whole nother probably podcast. But we're not guaranteed tomorrow. So let's take this opportunity, and thank you for the book. I think it's such a time as this, a perfect time for people to really maybe do some inventory and don't miss their life. So best way, you said, can they pre-order now?
Aaron, I lost you.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. So I'll follow. Can they pre-order the book now?
Yeah, man, I love that. Amazon.com, anywhere books are sold, but Amazon seems to be a preferred location.
Okay.
Yeah.
And everything I think is at your website. Is that correct?
Yep. AaronTredway.com.
2 A's, double A's, Aaron. How often are you called Aaron?
Aaron. Yep. You got it.
You get it all the time. I get it all the time. Constantly.
Yeah. We're two Aarons here. So, yep. That's a common one. It's funny because every time somebody says it, they say it to you like it's the first time you've heard it.
Every time. Yeah, you're like, oh, yeah, I haven't heard that one before.
Yeah. Hey, man, good one.
Yeah, good one. Great. Why don't you send me the meme? I've never seen it before. That's hilarious. Or the video.
Exactly.
I guess only two Aarons could know how funny that is.
No.
Everybody else is probably rolling their eyes.
Yeah,
but no.
that is true. Because they're thinking about saying it to us, but that's fine.
That's right. I'll probably have to squeeze it in this episode somewhere. But man, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for, I know you are busy, like you said, and thank you for taking the time. Thanks for loving Pat and being his pastor. Last thing, where are you a pastor?
Yeah,
what is the name of the church?
It's called Fellowship City Church. It's here in Cleveland, Ohio.
Let's go.
I'm not a native of Cleveland, but I've grown to just have a heart and love this city. And more importantly, I just love the people of Cleveland. So we're a multi-site church. Our vision is to reach the east side of this city, not because we don't love the west side, but we're on the east side and really want to have a global impact as well. So that's a little bit about us.
Well, and I don't know if Pat told you, but I'm a Clevelander. I'm a native Clevelander, and we live in Columbus, Ohio, but I love Cleveland, and I'd move back in a minute, but nobody else with my family would come with me.
I lost you again for a second, but you lived in Cleveland?
I did. I grew up in Bedford. So, yeah, minister to Bedford, hopefully people from Bedford are connecting with the church there.
We, in our strategy, we're thinking about planting in that direction, maybe kind of Macedonia way, but real close to Bedford.
Yeah, there you go. Well, the 216 always has a place in my heart, and thank you for ministering that. Where can they find the church itself?
Right now, we're in Chagrin Falls, Ohio, which is about 30 minutes east of downtown, and we're also in Orange. So two sites right now, and I kind of believe that pursuing a vision to have about 5 sites here in the next few years here on the east side of Cleveland.
Awesome. All right. I've taken a ton of your time. Thank you for everything. The 3 books, To Who, Outrageous, and the newest one, Don't Miss Your Life, which is available in October. You can get the other 2 books now. You can pre-order on Amazon for an October launch. And the website, one last time, is Aaron Tredway with no A. Tredway. Thank you, Aaron. I appreciate your time. Thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. I'll talk to you soon. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Unscripted Podcast with your host, Aaron. Make sure to like, share, follow, and review on your favorite podcast platforms. Also, make sure to check out my song Great and Mighty One on Spotify, iTunes, or wherever you find your music. We'll see you next time on Unscripted with Aaron Conrad.